So I made a video earlier about drain vents and the purposes of them, and the main purpose, of course, is to keep from P-traps being siphoned out, not to assist in the drainage of the system, again, unless it's on a septic. But I wanted to kind of talk about an experience I had one time where I got to see what does happen on a system where the vent has either been eliminated or has an issue on it, preventing from actually functioning and allowing that air to move out. I went to a customer's house for a completely different issue, fixed the issue, and I just, as normal, I would say, anything else you want me to look at while I'm here? And she said, I do have this funny issue. In this one bathroom, every time we flush the toilet, it makes this weird sucking sound on the in the sink next to the toilet. I said, show me. So we did. We went in there, big old school toilet. She flushed the toilet. It drained fine. Then you heard a sound and right out of the sinks next to it. And I thought, that is a vent issue. And went to look at to put my flashlight down into the sink, saw that water had siphoned out of it. I filled them back up, recreated the situation, and watched that water suck out of there. So let me go look in your attic. I went up to the attic to go look and see what the vent looked like. And this is essentially what I saw. She had her toilet, but upstairs in the attic, okay, so this is in the attic up here, the vent went up, over, and out of the roof. But what happened was, over time, or from a roof replacement or whatever, this strap that's supposed to hold this pipe level and with slope, because it's supposed to drain back towards the system, had fallen, causing it to trap water in it. And of course, it took a long time for that to happen, because not a lot of rain comes down there. Even when we get rain through that 4-inch pipe, it takes a while for it to finally fill up enough to completely close off this vent. So what happened to us is, when she would flush that toilet, water would go down here, and when it would pass this connection for the sink, it was needing air, because it's pulling air in through the system, and so it would just draw the water out of that P-trap in order to get the air that it needed to drain. But it didn't have any issue draining at all. It drained perfectly and had no issue on it. And that's because the vent is not necessarily crucial for draining, but the reason it sucked that air out, sucked the trap out of there, is because it needed air. If I can get this phone to set properly, but yeah, it needed air in order to drain. But it sought that air, got that air from that water in the P-trap, because water is not that dense. It just pulls it right out of there. It's not gonna, nothing's gonna keep that water from going out of there. And again, because there's plenty of air in that room, it pulled the water out of that trap. Air allowed it to drain properly, and no one was aware of what was going on in the attic. All I had to do was raise that pipe up, re-strap it to the roof, and allow that. When I lifted it up, I heard a huge whoosh, and all that water came out of that vent pipe down the system, and everything worked fine. No more siphonage of P-traps. And that was a perfect example on a city sewer system or municipal sewer connection on what the purpose of a vent is and what it actually did. Another thing, that a working vent, in fact, I've read this before in some plumbing catalog or a book or whatever sometime, but a good working vent can actually mask other issues, such as a belly in the pipe. What is a belly in the pipe? It is essentially this right here, where once after the P-trap, okay, let's say on a sink, and the pipe goes down here, and instead of having a continual downward slope, it has a sag in the middle that is actually trapping water right here. And what we run into a lot of times is people on a kitchen sink specifically, this is common, you'll see just a little air admittance valve, like I was talking about on my other video, that allows air to go in, but does not allow air to escape. So it's directional, one way, only allows air to be pulled in, which works fine if everything is working fine. But you need air to go out in this situation, because they have a big belly. So I've had plumbers do this. I've had my plumbers do this. They came and they told me, oh yeah, I pulled off the air admittance valve. We just need to install a vent to the roof and they'll be good to go. And I said, did you run a camera? Did you look down that line to make sure they didn't have a belly? Because I can guarantee you they've got a belly. Again, if they're not on septic, they're on city sewer. And they said no. They went back, ran a camera. Sure enough, there was a belly. And the reason it wasn't draining with the air admittance valve is because you were creating an airlock between that trap and the belly. Because just like a septic tank, it traps water inside of it and can't drain. Once you take off the air admittance valve or have a vent, then you'll never know about it until the drain finally clogs. Because what will happen on a belly is it'll start to develop a layer of buildup like that, which can occur naturally either way. But on a sag, or a belly, it's even more pronounced, and then the water just fills up. And then whenever water's flowing, it'll go over the amount or the level that the water should be, the flow line that water should have as it's flowing during a normal flow situation. It should never fill that pipe up more than a third to a half. But when you have buildup inside of there, it fills it up even more. If you have a belly, then regardless of anything, it's going to fill up. And that's what can cause that airlock inside of the system. Either you can go into there, tunnel under the house or whatever to correct it. If it's a slab house, if it's pier and beam, you can cut it out and put a new section in there that's straight. You don't always have to. It's really not the worst thing ever. My house, I've got a bit of a sag in my kitchen drain. All it means is I got to clean it out about every 4 to 5 years, and it's fine, and no problem there. But yeah, a good working vent can actually mask an issue of a belly in the pipe and all that, and that's a common one we run into, and oftentimes is oversold as being some major issue. But a belly is not necessarily the worst thing ever if it can be cleaned. If it's PVC piping, you can clean it out. You know, you can get a few more years out of it. It doesn't always have to be replaced unless you're just really wanting to fix it, or if it is major enough to where it's causing major drainage issues. But anyhow, hope that helps. Hope that kind of demystifies a little bit about drain vents and helps you to understand a little bit more about how your drainage system works. It's not drains aren't always as simple and basic as we think when there's problems that going on or problems that are occurring, or if the system's not designed properly. All kinds of weird things can happen, and there's a lot more to drainage systems than people realize, I think. So anyhow, hope that helps. Hope y'all have a good one. Later.